Bill Masters and Virginia Johnson were pioneers in the field of human sexuality. And in the 1950s and 1960s, they studied thousands of people engaging in the act of intercourse or masturbation. And from these observations, they figured out that both men and women go through these four stages during sex: excitement, plateau, orgasm, resolution. And these are part of what's called the sexual response cycle. I'll explain what happens in each of these stages. So for both men and women, the first stage is the excitement phase. And during this stage, foreplay usually occurs. And foreplay can consist of things like kissing, caressing, fondling, touching, and so forth. And during the excitement phase, one's blood pressure increases, the heart rate goes up, and some other bodily responses occur, which I will talk about in more detail on the next slide. But at this point, just know that the heart rate goes up and the blood pressure goes up. And then there is a leveling off of these bodily changes, and that's called the plateau. Then after that is the orgasm. And then there is the resolution phase, and that's where the body returns to its resting state. So let me explain in a little bit more detail about each of these stages. So the first stage is the excitement phase, and as I already mentioned, this generally foreplay occurs. And something that happens to the body during this stage is called vasocongestion. And this is where blood flows outwards towards the body's extremities, towards the arms and the legs. So blood flows outwards. And it's this vasocongestion that causes an erection in men. And in women, it causes the genitalia to become swollen. Also during this stage, lubrication of the vaginal walls occurs. For both men and women, the nipples become swollen, the breath shortens, and as I mentioned, the heart rate and the blood pressure rise during this phase. Next is the plateau stage, and this is where there's a leveling off of these body's reactions. Next is the orgasm. So during this phase, something called myotonia occurs. Myotonia, that is muscle contractions all over the body. And this is what causes the orgasm for both men and women. So in men, the myotonia or the muscle contractions cause the ejaculation because it causes the semen to be propelled from the erect penis. And then for women, the muscular contractions of either the vagina or the clitoris, or both, cause orgasm in women. For both genders, they experience pleasure and a physical release. Then the final stage is the resolution stage, and that's where the body returns to its resting state. So the heart rate returns to normal, the blood pressure returns to normal, and also both genders will experience a state of relaxation and satisfaction. Now, Masters and Johnson also discovered something called the refractory period. The refractory period is defined as the amount of resting time needed before another orgasm can be achieved. So for men, the refractory period can range from just a very few minutes to an hour or to even a day or more. And it depends on where the man is in the lifespan. So the way it works is that young men have a very short refractory period. So they might have an orgasm, and then within just a few minutes, they can achieve another erection and they're capable of having another orgasm. But older men, let's say maybe, for example, a 50-year-old man, he will most likely have a longer refractory period. So after he achieves an orgasm, it might be not till the next day that he's capable of having another orgasm. So that's the way it works for men in terms of the refractory period. Now, for women, because women do not have to achieve an erection in order to experience an orgasm, women technically have no refractory period. And that is indicated by this chart, which is just a little bit different than the first one I showed you. And that you'll see here, these dotted lines. This represents a second orgasm for the woman, because technically women are capable of multiple orgasms because they have no refractory period. So a woman could have an orgasm and then she is capable of having more than one orgasm, and she doesn't have to have any time pass. So that's why we say that women are capable of multiple orgasms. The most important thing to remember is that always make sure there is mutual consent, that both people agree to the sexual encounter. And keep in mind that if one or both people are under the influences of drugs or alcohol, so they're intoxicated, then consent is not possible. So if you are using any kind of alcohol or drugs, you want to be extra careful that both people are truly consenting, because any sexual contact without consent is morally wrong. And I really want to emphasize that. The other thing to remember is to use protection. Use birth control to help prevent an unplanned pregnancy. But also it's really important to use condoms because this will reduce the risk for sexually transmitted diseases. So just remember, make sure there's mutual consent and use a condom. Be safe emotionally and physically.